Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It's great to be here. And we have got a fascinating interview for you today. I have to warn you, it might make you feel lazy because when I read this lady's bio, I was blown away by everything she does. Not only is she a New York Times, USA Today, et cetera, best-selling author, she's sold over 80, which, yes, she has over 80 books in print in many countries, 24 countries, I believe, a lot of different languages. She teaches writing compelling fiction, and she runs, swims, bikes, triathlons. Welcome, Shirley Jump. It's great to have you on Get to Know.
Thank you so much for having me. And I have to say that when Doug reached out to me, I was like, oh my God, I love DP Lyle. I read him way back in the day when I first started writing and thought I could write suspense. And I couldn't, by the way. My career has kind of had this 180 pivot back to that. But I remember meeting him and Laughlin and that whole crowd at a conference a billion years ago. So it was very flattering for me to be on here. I've just been doing this for a long time and have very few hobbies. That's why it sounds so impressive.
You must not sleep either. So you definitely hit the ground running every day. We can, no pun intended. So we want to get to know you a little bit.
Mhm.
So I'm going to dig in to your childhood. I hope that doesn't
Mhm.
scare
No,
you.
no, not at all.
And would like to know if you feel that your childhood and upbringing contributed to you becoming a writer, and if so, how? Did you have imaginary friends? Were you an outgoing child, athletic, introverted? Share with us.
Not at all athletic. I was that girl that did everything to get out of gym class. Not at all athletic. That was a whole later in life thing. So I started writing by making up different endings to books that I read that I took out of the library, and I didn't like the way that it ended, and so I'd write my own. And then my family sponsored a family from Laos when I was 11 years old. There was three people who did not speak English who lived in my house, and it was very life-changing. And so I wrote an article about it, like a personal essay, and sent it off to the Brockton Enterprise, which was the daily paper in the town where I grew up in Massachusetts. And it had a pretty sizable circulation. They ran it and came out and did a story on me and my family. And I was like, that is it. I'm going to be the next Jane Pauley. So that's how old I am, right? Like back to the Jane Pauley days. And 6 months later, maybe even less, I called the editor of the local weekly. And back in those days, we didn't even have computers. I had one of the very first TRS 80s a couple years later. You just typed up your story and dropped it off at a Dropbox. You never met anybody in person. And I called the editor and pitched the story. And he asked me if I was in high school, and I lied and said that I was. I was 11. I was in eighth grade. It was March of my eighth grade year. They did not know how old I was until I was 14, and my mother finally let me go to the company Christmas party. So I worked there for several years, went to work for the Daily and became the town correspondent, then worked for a number of Boston area papers, and realized when I was 19, 20 that I did not have that Geraldo Rivera go get the story at any cost instinct. And I didn't enjoy that. And that's when I started moving into magazines. And that led to my first nonfiction book contract. And then I started writing fiction in my spare time, but I sucked at it. I wrote 10 books in 8 years. I amassed at least 250 rejections. I mean, so many rejections everywhere because I was not good. It's a very different skill set, as I'm sure you guys know, because you've also been in the nonfiction space to go from nonfiction to fiction. And it took me a really long time to sell my first book, but I wouldn't trade that experience and those rejections for anything.
Completely agree with you. And it is such a different, as somebody who was a correspondent in journalism for many, many years as a
Mhm.
political commentator, it is a completely different skill set. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, it's almost not even apples and oranges. It's like, apples and baseballs,
Right.
it's
Right.
very
Right.
different. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
Very,
really
very
have
much
to
so.
learn. Yeah.
I had
So,
to learn to stop writing from my head and start writing from my gut because nonfiction is three
mhm.
sources, 1,000 words, a conclusion, an introduction, prove these 3 points. Fiction is entirely written by instinct and understanding how story goes together. And you have to get that innate sense of story from reading so much and trying and failing, which nonfiction, it doesn't work that way at all. It's very linear. And this was more abstract and took me a long time to comprehend.
I can always tell. I feel it in my chest, like in my heart when I know it's right, and then when it's not right. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
get asked a
Yes.
lot, what's the difference between fiction and nonfiction? And I always say they're exactly the same, only different.
Hmm.
With nonfiction, you get all the research done, all your ducks in a row, you organize the material, and then you write it. And hopefully you bring some of your fiction techniques to it to make it more interesting. But with fiction,
Right.
you start telling a story. And then somewhere along the story, you got to research this or that or this or that. And you do that along the way. At least that's the way I do it. But don't ever let the research get in the way of the story. Tell the damn
Exactly.
story. Yeah.
Exactly. Although I do ghostwriting in nonfiction, I work for a number of clients that I have an NDA with. So they're Today Show contributors, HGTV celebrities, White House advisors, things like that. And that I have done in the last 10 years. And a lot of the fiction skills that I learned with how to tell a compelling
Hmm.
story to get people to turn the page, whether I'm writing about infectious disease control or I'm writing about somebody's memoir or I'm giving beauty tips, whatever book I'm writing, I'm doing that same thing of trying to drag people along to get them to the next
Sure.
page.
Yes.
So to me, every reader has a limited amount of time on this earth. And if they are giving me 4 hours of their life to read a book that I have worked on, it better be worth that instead of going to their kids or with their spouse or doing their job or whatever. You have to be delivering a product that is worth that very valuable gift.
And now we compete with everything. We're
Yes.
competing
Yes.
gaming, television, the iPhone, etc. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a
Yep.
completely different world.
Hmm.
At least from when I started. Doug and I met in 1996 at the Maui Writers Conference when we knew nothing,
Oh, nice.
but we were determined to learn something.
Hmm.
But so
And why
going
not
back
do it
to,
in Maui, right?
yeah.
Right. You got to pick a place. That's better than my choice of Boston. So,
So it sounds like from the get-go, you got out of high school and you went ahead and you just went straight into writing and doing all of that. Wow. So not to give away your age, but about how many years have you been writing?
so I'm 56, and I have no problem with that because I have a filter. So I can say 56 all day long and it'll just be like, oh, her age blurred nicely. I have literally been writing all my life. I'm one of those people that knew what I wanted to do from the minute I could read. I've always wanted to do this. Now I've done it in a million different incarnations. I worked in marketing and publicity for a while, and I would rather chew off my own arm than go back into the marketing world. And I've done speaking, I've done a lot of different things, and realized that it was all about telling a great story, no matter what you're doing, whether you're trying to sell gas pumps or get a speech out there that is going to move people. Because like you said, we are competing with all of these different things, and why am I going to follow this book that I'm reading as opposed to following the story of Garbanzo the cat on TikTok? Like, what's going to grab me to get here instead of there?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your process. I mean, 80 books, that's remarkable. So are you an outliner? Are you a pantser? How do you go about writing? Let's talk
So,
fiction at this point.
like most people, it's a very convoluted process. What I teach on my channel is the bones of my process and how my process started. It is not the same way that I did it 100 books ago. So I've published 87, but I've written at least 100 or so, because there was all those rejected ones. I had wrote 10 books in 8 years before I sold my first one. So I had a whole bunch of rejected ones. And at first I started out outlining, and then I realized if I know how the story ends, I don't want to write it because I'm like, oh, I figured it out. Because part of the process for me is figuring out how the heck I'm going to end this story. Now, my publishers make me write a synopsis that I literally never look at again because, again, I don't want to know how the book ends. I want to figure it out as I go. But my process has evolved to be a little bit of plotting, a little bit of pantsing. I start off with the what if. I write 2 or 3 chapters, let these people tell me who they are, like meeting some new neighbors, like who are you? What's important to you? What are you scared by? Then I go back and say, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen to them? And how can I make it even worse than that? And then go forward from there. And then when I get stuck, I know it's because I've dropped a stitch somewhere in the plot and I've got to go back and fix that. And I kind of piecemeal a book together by that, but a lot of it is done by gut instinct. I read constantly, and that gives you that innate sense
Yep.
of the story's missing this, the story needs that, even if you don't know how to fix it. I literally just did a video about a proposal that I sent to my agent, and she loved it. She was going to send it out, and then life got in the way on her end. And when I sent it, I knew something was wrong in the first 3 pages, but I didn't know what, and I didn't know how to fix it. But I was like, ah, it's good enough. She likes it. I'll go with it. And then when she said that, she's like, so can you send it to me again? Because I think I lost the email. I was like, oh, opportunity to fix the thing that's wrong. And I went in, spent a half an hour, and I was like, that's what's wrong, and fixed it and sent it back. And now I'm like, okay, it's as good as it's gonna get.
Well, we're
That's
so much alike that way. If I used to outline my first full
Mhm.
books, and I found that I spent weeks on the outline, and then I realized, well, I don't want to write this. I already know this
Right.
story. It's boring, and now it becomes a labor, not a labor of love, but a
Right.
labor to write the book. So when I started the Jake Longley series, I had one scene in mind. That's it. Wasn't even sure who Jake was. I didn't know who the bad guys were. I didn't know who was going to die. I didn't know anything. And I said, let's just write this scene and see what happens. And bang, the
Right.
story took off. And so that's the way I do things now. I like that because it is very, as you said, in your gut. You have to have a feel for it. Well, you
Mhm.
obviously do a lot of teaching, and
Yes,
you got your book there, writing compelling fiction.
I
Uh,
do. Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
book
yeah.
and the workbook.
Yeah. So tell us about that and about what you're doing. You're doing a lot of online courses and things like that. So
Mhm.
what is that all about now?
So I wrote writing compelling fiction because somebody had said to me, you really need to do a how-to book because I taught so much, I spoke so much. And when COVID happened and all of a sudden all of the speaking went away for a couple of years, I decided I would put all of what I knew into a how-to book. And then finally got talked into doing a YouTube channel because I really didn't want to do it. I didn't like being on video, even though I'd had a career for a couple of years in television. I didn't really want to do video, but I realized that it was a good way to reach these newer writers. And I do a lot of one-on-one consults, and I've seen so many people that are taking the lazy way out or not really working on the craft or have no idea how plot comes together, and they're coming to me with a book that they want to send out into the world, and I'm like, no, this is not ready. You need to make it as good as it possibly can so that you are doing honor to your gift. Otherwise, you are just kind of blowing it because you want to get it out there and you want to make $1 million, and you're watching these people that release 52 books a year and are, millionaires. I don't want more books like that. I want people to write quality books, to respect their craft, to really understand how a book works, and then write the best book that they possibly can. So that's how the channel evolved. And then the workbook came from all of the things that I was talking about on the channel, and I was giving people a concrete place where they could put it all together. These are the things that happen in the back of my head, but I wanted to give them a way to write it down and figure it out and go from there because there's just so much knowledge that isn't being put across in ways that people can understand it. I've read a ton of writing how-to books myself, and I'm like, I don't get this. And I know how write a book goes together. I want it to be more of an intuitive process for people and to teach them how it works with human psychology, how it works with how you feel about a book, all of those different emotional components that need to go in to teach them how to write.
Boy, you're speaking our language. I mean,
Yes, yeah.
that is, I can't wait to read the book. I haven't read it yet, and so I'm all over it because I think you bring not only practical knowledge, but you bring a sense of wisdom, I can tell, to what you teach.
And enthusiasm.
Yes,
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 You have to
yes.
have passion for this. If you're not a passionate teacher, you're not a teacher. And
that's true.
you have to be in the subject. You have to engage the student. And to me that's always been the great part about teaching. And I can see
Right.
that you do the same thing. And you have a YouTube channel and you put up
Yes.
shorts all the time about writing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
How did that come about and how's that going? And
It's going
where can
well.
people log on to it?
It's
Yes.
called Write Better Fiction with Shirley Jump. And they can just find it anywhere. It's been growing steadily, thankfully not too fast because I don't think I could handle the amount of work that would take to keep up with the community and the responses and all of that. And same thing with the courses, they've grown at a nice steady rate to where I can manage it because I never wanted it to get too far ahead of me. And plus, I'm also still writing 3 books a year for New York publishers, and then I'm also still working with 6 to 10 clients a year writing their books. I have a couple of people that work for me, but my company's still full time busy. My career is still full time busy, and then I've got the channel. And for me, I went out there onto YouTube and started to look at who was teaching writing. And not to knock other people, but in a way to knock them. There are a whole lot of people out there who have either never finished a damn book or only written one, and they are telling people how to write a book. And I'm like, okay, you got your license, you got in your mother's Buick, you did not get on I-90 and go across the country. You don't know what you're doing yet. You may understand the mechanics of a book, but you really don't know how to write a book if you've only done it once. You don't play basketball in the backyard and then go straight to the NBA. That is not how it works. People seem to think that they're born with this gift of storytelling. Boom, I should be able to publish a book and be on the New York Times list. That is not how it works. You really have to hone and practice your craft, just as you would with anything else. You can't take the doodles from kindergarten and become the next Picasso. You really need to learn it and understand it. And if you're going to learn from a writing instructor, it should be somebody who made an actual living at this and knows what they're talking about. And so that's where I've been kind of hammering on the fact that I have the experience to teach you people how to do this, and hope that you listen to me, because I made a whole lot of mistakes that I don't want you to make. So when I saw that hole, that there was nobody that was really at my level, and I'm not trying to be egotistical, I'm just saying that nobody that had this experience of 87 published books, and all I've been a seller on every bestseller list, sometimes more than once. That's a valuable experience that other people can learn from so that they can get there. Because most of the writers I meet say, I would love to be on the New York Times list. Well, this is how you write the kind of book that gets on the New York Times list. So
Yep.
I
that's
love
why I
that because I'll
started.
tell you, I think, especially with Kindle and the fact that people can just self-publish easily,
Hmm.
until later, they usually don't realize how important craft is.
Right.
Many people think that if you can write an email, you can write a book, and it's just
Yeah.
not, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And, there are so many companies out there. And one of the reasons we started Outliers is because there's so many companies out there that are going to teach you how to write a book who have no credentials, as you're saying.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of scams. And so
Yes.
that's why every instructor with Outliers has to be a bestseller and a
Hmm.
working writer, because it's so important. And so I think it's phenomenal that you're out there teaching, because you have amazing credentials and really can make a difference in a writer's career.
Well, you only get one chance, right? You get one chance with an editor, one chance with an agent, one chance with a reader. If you send them crap, they're not going to pick up another piece of crap. Even if it is your best written book, you're like, oh, my second one was awesome. And I'm sure you guys have met the people who are like, I know the beginning stinks, but the middle's awesome. I'm like, if they don't read page one, they are sure as hell not going to read page 72. You
Right.
have one chance, and you better make it your best possible chance. And I get that it is hard to do this. If it was easy, we'd all be millionaires at this. It is very hard to dip into these emotions that we have in here, these traumas, these anxieties and insecurities that we all have, and put them on the page through a character. It's not a simple task. But once you understand how impactful it can be, and you start getting emails and letters from readers who are like, you helped me get over the loss of my mother, or you helped me get through breast cancer treatments, then you realize the power that you have in order to tell a good story and give people something that delivers an experience that they need at that moment in their life.
Yep. And that's an important lesson is you have to hit the streets of running and you have to
Mhm.
grab their attention very quickly. And then, of course, as the writer's point of view, is there's always that 40,000 word panic. You get 40,000 words into the book, and I don't, I've got 27 books in print, and you get 40,000 words. It's like, this is a hot mess. It makes no sense. It's awful. I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm doing. And the only
Exactly.
difference is, like you said, experience tells you, well, you've been here before, you idiot. Just
Hmm.
keep writing. It will all work out because you're going to rewrite it
Right,
5 times anyway.
right.
Don't panic about it. But the first couple of books, it's like, oh my God, how do I get out of this hole? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Where
Every
can,
time I think, I don't know 85,000 words. How can I put a book together? That was something I talk about on my channel, is proof of concept. And the story that I told last week was about winning, sharing first place. Actually, I tied for first place in the short story contest in seventh grade, and they gave me a thesaurus. And I was like, okay, this is my proof that I can tell a good story. And apparently somebody else can too. But there was my proof of concept. You know how to do this. And if that's all the proof of concept you have, use that to fuel you to keep going, to try harder, to write a better book.
exactly,
I love
exactly.
that. I love that. So where can our viewers find your books, your channel, your website? Tell us the basic background.
So shirleyjump.com, you can find everything is linked on there. In general, I just redid my website. It looks really cool. And then writing compelling fiction. We have a community within Think of Fic, which is where my classes reside. And then Write Better Fiction with Shirley Jump is on YouTube. You just Google me, everything will come up. There's quite a bit out there. So yeah, you can find me anywhere because the books are in 24 different languages across the world. And so yeah, it's there if you Google me. My brother used to go to work and Google me just to show his friends. Like
Oh,
I'm like, listen, I've just been around a long time. That's why there's a lot of results. I'm just a million years old. So
I love it. Well, Shirley, it has been fabulous having you. We're definitely having you back. I
thank
hope that
you.
you will join
Yes,
us because
absolutely.
you are really a dynamo and
Thank
love
you.
the energy, love what you're doing. It's aligned with the way we look at the the literary world, and just really appreciate you. And I also want to ask our viewers to please click the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithms to get the interviews out there, and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. And Doug, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, Shirley, thank you so much. This has been very insightful, and I'm sure that our viewers and all our writer friends out there are going to get a lot from this. Uh, I encourage them to go to your website and look at your classes. They're really cool. I love the stuff you've got on YouTube, and everybody should do that. So this has been the Outliers YouTube channel and our program Get to Know here with Shirley Jump today. You know, come back. We'll have more interviews and more fun. And until then, keep reading, keep writing, keep having fun, and don't get caught.